You're listening to a Nerds podcast. All things nerds, music, horror movies, pro wrestling, video games, anything nerds would like.
Once again, back with another Nerds podcast. Today I have someone with me. It's really awesome to have him. I'm going to make sure I have your name right. So it's Erick. What's your last name? I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong. Lockhart?
Yeah, no, that's exactly how it's spelled. Yep, Lockhart.
Okay. I was afraid I'm going to pronounce someone's name wrong. So that's why I like to ask them ahead of time. But I should ask you ahead of time, but that's cool. Yeah, I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate just taking time out of your day to do this. I want to let you know I'm really grateful for the fact you did this for me. Appreciate it.
Hey, no, not a problem. Glad to be on.
Cool. Yeah, and first off the back, this is based on Nerds podcast. It's basically all things nerd, pro wrestling, music, comic books, anything nerds would like. That's basically the gist of it. And I like to try to have professional wrestlers on. I'm very grateful for anyone just would be nice enough to interview me. But I think it's fun to interview professional wrestlers. And I'm assuming you were a fan as a kid, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Now, when you started watching as a kid, who was on television when you were watching?
So it would have been, it's hard to say when I started watching exactly, because when we grew up, our dad just had a ton of videos from previous years, so we were watching things from the 80s thinking that was what was on TV now.
Yeah.
And we were 90s babies. I guess there was a lot of Hogan and Warrior when we started watching.
Yeah.
And then it was just, videos were all, VHS was all over the place. So
Yeah,
you'd be watching and The Rocker was on one video and then you'd put it in and then Sean is by himself. And you're like, what happened here?
Yeah.
You didn't have the dots to connect just because as a kid you didn't understand that this was years later type of thing.
Yeah, no.
We were definitely WWF bred, so.
Okay, that's cool. Now, I should ask you this way. It's a bit easier way to ask. I shouldn't say as a kid. Let me ask you this way. Who stuck out when wrestling started to register? When you started making memories where you say, this is pretty awesome. You think this dude is pretty awesome. Who did you stood out for you then?
Definitely I had a handful of guys on there. Ultimate Warrior was one that stuck out right away as he did for, majority of kids. Just the colors and everything was attractive. But then I pretty much had a type where if they were the guys with long hair, I kind of gravitate towards them. It didn't really matter if they were a baby face or heel or whatever. So I gravitate towards the Rockers, Mr. Perfect, Texas Tornado.
That's pretty cool.
Those are my favorites.
That's pretty awesome, though. Did you watch the Dark Side of the Ring specials on what was it on Viceland?
Yes, I believe I caught all of them. You might catch me in a lie here, but I believe I saw the whole first season.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you had said watch 2 or 3, it would have made a difference. I was cool. You just could say yeah, but I was just curious. Did you remember if you did catch it? Did you catch the Von Erich one?
I don't know if I saw the Von Erich one.
If you,
I'm very aware of their story, obviously.
Oh yeah, the tragic story.
I saw that from the Dark Side.
It's interesting. If you haven't, go back and check it out if you can find it. Hopefully they'll provide them for you can watch them. But that story of the family is insane.
Yeah.
And the reason I brought it up because you mentioned it, because you mentioned Texas Tour, and that's why I brought it up. But yeah, now as a kid, in school, did you any athletic sports or anything like that? Football, basketball, whatever.
Oh yeah, I mean wrestling. Started wrestling when I was 7 or 8 years old. And I had 3 brothers. There's 4 of us, so all of us started wrestling at the same time. And it was one of those things as a kid where you think you're going to get in the ring and jump off the top rope, and then you just walk up and there's a mat on the floor, and you're like, oh, what's this?
Yeah.
So we just kind of learned what amateur wrestling was.
Okay, it's cool though. I like that. Now, did you do that the entire time when you were in school, or did you just did it for a couple of years?
Yes, sir. From 7 to 8 years old all the way through high school graduation. that's what I was doing. Wrestled actually all year round. I did football for, 3-4 years. Didn't go out actually stopped going out after my sophomore year. Because I just wanted to focus on wrestling. So I wrapped up my last 2 years of high school focusing on wrestling and qualifying for state and stuff like that. So that was where all my focus was.
Okay, that's cool. Now, when you got a chance to basically train in professional wrestling, who was the school that trained you?
First school I went to was called Midwest Pro Wrestling. So this MTW, their big claim to fame was they're the school that trained Jabari and Mr. Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
And now they got their own school up in the same area, Midwest All Star.
Okay.
And so we did a couple months there because I was training with my brothers still. We all joined pro wrestling at the same time.
Okay.
And then that school folded. We did some lucha with Charlie Manson Jr. He's a guy from AAA CNL down in Mexico.
Okay.
And then we were officially trained by the Gagnes. My dad knew a guy type of thing and got us hooked up with Greg Gagne, and he trained us for 6 months. The same way Byrne used to train guys in his barn. So squats and all the calisthenics and just bump after bump after bump. Same way Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, all those guys were trained.
Wow, that is pretty awesome. I like that. Now, I always ask this question: how was your first bump? How did that feel?
First bump was great. I took my first bump. Had the form was down and everything, and I sat up and got back on my feet. And like, yeah, this is where I was meant to be.
Cool.
Okay. Most people don't have a good first bump, so do another one. Second one, I rocked myself.
Okay.
So I hit my head. Didn't keep it tucked.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe this isn't for me.
Okay.
Literally, first one was great. Second one, I'm like, okay, that did kind of suck. But
okay. You kind of did tell me, but I feel like I should ask anyway. What was the regiment outside like the bumps and stuff like that? What did they have you doing on a daily basis when you trained?
Okay, so Greg's big thing was every day we start with squats, and his whole goal that by the end of I said it was 6 months, but it was probably closer to like a 4-month period that he was training us, 3 or 4 months. At the end of that time period, he wanted us to be able to stand there and do 1,000 squats in a row without stop.
Wow.
And I just thought that's what he did. So, we didn't ask any questions. That's what we did. So I can tell you what, I can pick up squats anytime, like the rest of my life. I can just jump right back on squats because your legs just never forget that. So.
Wow, that is crazy.
Squats was definitely the hardest part of his training, and even before you got in the ring, just doing a ton of squats. Like, okay, now let's get in the ring and bust balls. So.
Okay, that's all right though. I like that. And since you did say Vern Gagne, was there a weeding out process? And what I mean is this: did they work you so much to the point that they wanted to break you to see who could survive? Did they do that to y'all?
Yeah, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that in an interview. So that's how it was. You've done your homework. That's how it was back then when Vern was training people. He'd have a class of 20, maybe 2 would graduate or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Greg's whole deal was he was trying to break us. Now, he was doing a favor because we reached out to him kind of for his friend, I'll come and look at these kids who want to learn to wrestle. So we paid him up front. And when he came out, he was very clear, because he would come once a week, and our dad had bought a ring too. Our dad was all in and trying to help us achieve our dream. So he bought a ring, and we had it in a warehouse out behind where he worked.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg would come out once a week to teach us techniques, and if we didn't have the technique that he taught us that week down by the next time he came out the following week, we were done. He was like, I want you to be progressing, and if we have to do a hip toss 2 weeks in a row, you guys aren't progressing quick enough. Mm-hmm. So every week we needed to prove that we had practice and picked up to perfection whatever he taught us that previously. So it's still very much of the mentality of if they're not getting it, I'm done with them. I'm going to weed them out.
Yeah, that makes sense though, because that's a very grueling sport, and they want to make sure you're tough enough to handle it. That does make sense. I kind of understand why they would do that to y'all.
Yeah, he was old school too. So I mean, they wanted people that could hang.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, when you got to basically get in the ring and just hone your craft as like, you're always a pro wrestler. As soon as you get in the match, I'm assuming you're always a pro wrestler. But like in your basically your promotion or whatever, how did it feel to just be able to get out there and like, I don't know how big the crowds were in your promotion, but even if it's like 8-10 people, that's still pretty awesome. How did that feel your first time out?
Yeah, so he put us, Greg put us with a little crew. I guess we had our first matches before Greg. My first match was just fortunate with the Lucha guys we were training with. There was a guy that had a ton of money that loved soda, and he'd bring in all the stars from Mexico. So I can't remember who was headlining the card, but there was a ton there, because he'd bring in Lockhart, and he'd bring in all these guys I watched in WCW growing up, Psychosis and stuff like that. So the Latin community would come out in huge numbers to support this. So my first show was in front of like around 1,000 people, and
that's
then
cool.
you just think that's how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, look at all these people here, and they didn't care who I was, because I was just the skinny white guy they didn't know. But they were there for the stars they were going to be on later. But you learn pretty quick that, I'd wrestle in front of tons of people. I'd wrestle in front of literally one guy. Mm-hmm. My brother and I opened the show one time, and there was one guy in the audience. That's all that paid to watch. Mm-hmm. And I felt worse for him than us. There's more people in the ring than were out there. And what's he supposed to do? Woo! It's awkward.
That's funny. No, I like that though. It's cool though. Now, I would ask you this: like, do you watch? Let me ask you first. Let me ask a question first. How is the scene in basically the area? Is it a positive, good scene where pro wrestlers from other territories get to hone their craft?
Yeah, so where I started was the Midwest, and there's a good wrestling scene up in the Midwest, and there was even when I was up there, and this was like the mid-2000s, early 2010s. So, yeah, it was good up there, and then I moved down to Texas and trained at Booker T's place.
Okay.
And they had a good little niche down in Houston of like a good fan base. Now there's wrestling in Texas, but you gotta drive from city to city because Texas is so big. So like that, it's like you're traveling the territory. And actually, I'm located in Florida now. Orlando has a good scene in relation to if you want work, you can find work there.
That's cool.
A lot of newer people, but a lot of hungry people.
Mm-hmm. That's cool though. Are you managed to stay healthy and stuff? Is like they have good people to make sure you stay healthy, or how do you? This way. How do you keep yourself healthy? Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, you're gonna feel, and the longer you do it, you're gonna feel it, right? But you do things. There's a Booker T rule where you don't do anything in the ring in a match that you can't do 10 times out of 10 times in practice.
Yeah.
So he'd have people come in there and be like, oh yeah, I want to do a springboard, plancha. He was like, fine, you can do it, but I want to see you do it 10 times right now, and then you can do it on the show. So people can hit it 10 times, he's like, don't do it. Like, AJ Styles is never going to miss when he springboards. So if you're going to miss even 1 out of 10 times, don't risk it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, like, I take care of myself that way. If I don't know for sure I'm going to hit it, I'm not going to do it. And, I've been around a lot now where people are saying something that makes me uncomfortable, if they're going to pick me up and probably someday. I was like, if my neck's hurting tonight, I'd rather not, even if that's not the truth. Like, you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's cool. That makes sense, because the whole thing with Brock Lesnar. I mean, anyone else who had done that shooting star press probably been a paraplegic, but he probably should have never done it at all. That's the thing about it. He should have never done it.
I'm sure you've seen the video of him hitting it, though. Like, I mean, he used to do it.
Yeah, he did.
It's not that he couldn't. It didn't work that night.
Yeah, it could have been, but it's that one time. All it takes is that one time to do something, and then you could shut you down for the rest of your life. And I know he can do it. I know he could, but someone talked him into it and say, hey man, it'd be cool if you did that shooting stars press for the WrestleMania. It'd be a big WrestleMania moment. But See how that played out.
Right, but yeah, that one he missed is the one everyone was watching.
Exactly. So sometimes it's like, how about I just don't do it tonight? But yeah, but like, and you said you were wrestling. It's pretty cool. Did wrestling come into play? Like, collegiate wrestling. Did that help you out on the mat?
Yeah, man, body control. That's what it really taught me. I've trained with people who just complimented like my hip control and stuff like that. It's something you don't even think about because you've been doing it your whole life. But I was very easily able to adapt to having my body thrown and landing a safe way because I've done it since I was a kid. Like, you don't let yourself get thrown and fall on your head. You're going to tuck your chin and make sure you kind of bend your hips to your back, even in amateur wrestling, so you don't get injured. So.
Yeah, that's cool though. What if you have? I don't know if you have a style or not. You can. It doesn't matter if you don't or if you do. But like, do you consider your style? If you have what kind of style would you call it if you do have a style of wrestling? Your chain or whatever.
A lot of people watching me will definitely lean towards saying I have a technical style in the ring for sure. Because it's very methodical, very breakdown, very calculated. I can do a lot of different stuff, but like the technical just suits me better. Where like I'm never going to screw any of that stuff. It becomes very natural. So and it works against all sides opponents.
That's cool. I like that. Have you ever practiced at jiu-jitsu or judo? Have you ever practiced that before?
So I've trained with people in wrestling that come from those backgrounds. A handful of BJJ people.
Yeah.
And then, just a ton of mixed martial arts people have definitely come in and want to try their hand in pro wrestling. And it's just fun to learn from them because, they have completely different techniques and ways of looking at things. So, I guess I kind of trained secondhand just by working with people that come from those worlds.
That's all right, though, because that's very... The fact that people know what grappling is, they understand, holds and stuff. I always thought that if that part of it would be amazing in wrestling, and now, especially now, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, things are ever evolving, so it's definitely nothing that I'd be surprised to see.
Yeah. Do you have a philosophy in wrestling? This may come off a silly question. I don't know if you do or not, but if you do, there's no wrong answer. But do you consider yourself to have some sort of philosophy in wrestling? If you do, if you don't, it's cool either way.
Yeah, that's another question I've ever gotten. That's a good one. I always tell people that the 2 H's is humble and helpful. When you got to stay humble in the stuff. There's a lot of people that come in a couple of years that kind of get an ego about themselves.
Yeah.
And everyone does this. That's fine. It'll turn around. And if it doesn't, they're going to just probably get weeded out of certain locker rooms and stuff. But if you come and helpful, people are going to want you to be around. Not out to help if you can go deliver. But a lot of surviving wrestling comes behind the curtain. You do have to survive in the locker room. You got to survive with the boys, with the promoters. And if you're a helpful person, you're going to last longer.
That's cool, though. Now, let's say if a person was to come into wrestling, like a young person, and they wanted to put their hand at it, and they wanted to get into it, what would you tell them to do first, like in the ring? Oh, that's kind of silly. Let's put it this way. Like, as training-wise, how would you, give them the tough love or whatever if they wanted to get it, put their hand at it? Say if I wanted to try their hand at wrestling, how would you present it to them or something like that? I'm trying to say it in the right way. I can't see it in the right way for some reason.
So are we talking if they're already getting in the ring? We're talking the first day of training type of thing?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Or if they're just inquiring about getting into wrestling?
First day of training.
Okay, yeah. So I've trained a ton of people from square one. Some people I'm very proud of, and some people that you never heard from again type of thing.
Yeah.
But I started training people down at Booker's because once I kind of learned what Booker was doing, and he got a feel for me, he trusted me to train his people on the days that he couldn't be there because Booker is busy, he stays busy. So if he was on the road, I was back at his school training new people, training experienced people, and just helping people along, telling them what Booker wants to see. But in that, I kind of developed my own ways of training, and I tend to be the type of person that people like to train with because I'm very understanding, I'm very helpful, and very patient. So the first thing I make anyone do when they get into the ring is we always just start with very basic tumbling, like front rolls, back rolls. And if you can't do it from your feet, that's fine. We'll do it from your knees, and we'll build you up. So the first thing I always make people do is just tumbling because it's body control. If you can do a front roll and get back up to your feet, then I know you can get knocked down and get back up from any different angle. So just knowing and kind of getting the equilibrium set too, right? So tumbling.
That's cool. I like that. Now, I only have a few more questions. I appreciate you allowing me to interview. I'm very grateful. But I always do these at the last because it's always fun to do. And it's more of a fantasy question. And the first one is let's say you have a stable, and the stable you get 4 people. And then the 4 people would say you're the ringleader, you're the 5th person, you're the guy who's basically the head, the Ric Flair, or whatever you want to call it. It's you can pick whoever you want. It doesn't matter, living or dead. You can pick people in your promotion. Just tell me why you would pick them. But you get 4 people, you get to pick. Who would you like to pick in your stable?
God dang it! So I'm building a Survivor Series team. That's a tough one. Let's see here. So I'm going to take my brother first because him and I have tag teamed all over the world.
Cool.
So it's easy to just look at to have someone on your team where you can look at them. You don't have to communicate he knows what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So it'd be my brother and I, and then I'd probably have to put a heartbreak on the team. So let's see here. Yeah, so myself, my brother, Andrew Lockhart, that is, Shawn Michaels.
Cool.
Then we need to get some size on the team. So because I grew up in that same era as Shawn Michaels, watching the same era that Shawn Michaels came up in, it'd probably be Undertaker.
Cool.
Okay, all right. So
you got one more.
Pretty solid start. Let's see here. The one burying styles. You know what? I just watched the A&E special last night, the biography, so I got Stone Cold on the brain. So I think they'll throw Steve Austin in there as well.
You get Austin team you got there. That's a nice team. That's definitely a Survivor Series team. It will be handling business. I like that. Now,
yes, sir.
Now this one is going to be like a WrestleMania kind of match, and that's the only way I can say it. But WrestleMania, and it says for the heavyweight championship belt. Who would you like to compete against? Who would you like to fight for the belt? You can pick anyone. Doesn't matter. Just if it's someone in your camp, you can tell me why.
You know what? At least looking at it right now, I probably want Daniel Bryan in that type of match.
I like that. You just the third person said that. That's pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah, third person said that.
D-Bryan can go, man.
He's a gentleman. He's the guy I would love to see. That would be awesome. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But I like that, though. I appreciate that. Hey, man, I thank you again for allowing me to do this, and hopefully down the line, if when you're not busy or something like that, and I'd like to hit you up and just ask you about wrestling. Just don't have to be your promotion. Just talk about your philosophy in wrestling, because you have a wide knowledge of wrestling, and because you compete too. That is even more important, because your opinion is very valuable. So hopefully, when you're not busy, I'd like to interview you again. That'd be really fun.
Yeah, Cordo, hit me up, man. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate your time today.
No problem, man. Man, I hope you have a good rest of the week. Hope you have a good rest of the day. Thank you again. I'll see you later.
Yeah, man. Take care. Thank you.
All right. See ya. That was Erick Lockhart. The person I got to interview was really awesome. I really appreciate him being nice enough to do this. And hopefully down the line he'll come back again. And for right now, I'm just going to do a instrumental music and for closing.